Now, you had the religious leaders, but what does this all mean? To help us appreciate this, we sought the view of Dr. Moses Odongo, the Archbishop or the General Overseer of the National Fellowship of the Born Again Pentecostal Churches of Uganda. Good evening, and thank you for joining us, sir.
Good evening, Mildred, and NTV viewers. Thank you for having me here.
Well, getting straight into it, what do you make of the government's plan to validate the religious groups?
First of all, this plan is not a bad plan. However, to say you are going to tax maybe offerings and tithes is something that we cannot buy into, because the money that comes in form of tithes and offerings has already its work. The churches are not getting all that they need to get, because this money is basically for running the operations of the ministry and also ministering to the communities that they serve in, doing outreaches, preaching the gospel, and taking care of orphans and most of the vulnerable people in communities. The next place they run to is church. So if you ask yourself, where does the money for doing all these things come from? It comes from the churches. Okay. So this money already really has its work.
So you've just mentioned that taxing is something that is not acceptable. Is that what the policy is seeking to address? Is it seeking to tax the church's money that is coming from the offertory and the tithers?
Part of that, but also about taxing all other monies that come through churches, parachurch. However, in this issue, it is more about us really embracing our accountable leadership. That is really what I would really call that we are allowed to emphasize our accountable leadership to make sure this money goes where it's supposed to go.
So do you think it is necessary for the government to even go this far, or do you think that the religious institutions should be independent?
Self-regulation is the way to go. We already have structures really to take care of ourselves and the good laws of these countries that handle the other matters. So I would really encourage that we continue with the self-regulations. Yeah.
So you seem not to be buying into the new policy of the government.
Not really, because sometimes it comes slowly and then it goes into other bigger parts. Yeah.
But don't you think that you being accountable to the congregation or to the flock is something that the government is seeking to address is really very important?
That is very true. And I also encourage really all our leaders to embrace the accountable leadership really, to make sure that the money that we get in church goes for what it is meant for. And it is, our people know where it is going. They're always given the accountability. They're always involved in the plans and in the planning of that money, because the leadership in the church should be able to care for that.
Okay, so what should then the public think if some religious leaders seem to be collecting substantial sums of money, which is largely tax-free, that is after each service?
Now, first of all, those who are collecting that kind of money are very few in this country. You are looking at maybe Kampala City, and those are very few churches. Most of our churches don't really collect all that huge money. And so it is just that those people, those churches that collect all that amount, should just let the money go to where it's supposed to go, and they also do more with that money. If they're able to collect much, they are able to also do more. But really, our churches don't collect all that kind of big monies. Our churches really struggle. You go to a church in the village, you go to a church in these towns, the monies, they hardly get 10,000. They hardly get 30,000. You know, and
from the offertory.
From the offertories and tithes. Yeah.
So can you name for us some of the activities that probably this money goes into, when because you've been highlighting that you only collect the money to do the work of the church or the work of the Lord? What are some of the activities that you engage in?
In the church, there is paying of the bills, electricity, water bills, and the church workers within there they're always given some stipends to help them when they come and spend time, when they come and work in the church. Some of those. And then doing outreaches, definitely, because our work is to preach the gospel. Going out to do outreach takes a lot of money. if you have to hire equipment, if you have to have a stage, and even the people you go to meet, sometimes like for the prison ministry, you also have to buy some sugars and some soap here to take for those people. So that money really is not even enough, I would say. It's not even enough, but we have been working with it. Our pastors have been really hustling around to make sure that they couldn't obey the call of God upon their lives, and they're also reaching out to the communities and causing also development at the same time. Because here you have orphans and the elderly, and there are schools that are supporting these people to get education, to be cared for. And some of those who are even thrown away, most of our church will take care of these people. And so that money goes into helping all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about these religious leaders who tend to exhibit outrageous amounts of wealth? Perhaps they are the reason that is attracting the talk of taxing the church, because they give the impression that there is a lot of money in church. Perhaps,
but I believe some of them work. But some of them also have bigger expenditure of that money. And I know there could be challenges here and there. Well, but saying that you are going to now tax that money is not something really viable. Maybe other arms of government should go in and look critically inside there. Yeah.
Okay. So in regards to the accountability, you've already highlighted that you do declare in church when you've collected the money, the tithe and the offertory. Is it only enough for you to declare, or should the congregation now come back and ask that, okay, where has this money, track the investment, to track where their money is actually going?
Yeah, that is involved, that the congregation have right to come back and really ask what this money has done, and if you're faithful with handling this money, they don't even need to ask you, because at the end of it, they are part of the development projects of the church. Where this money is going, you give reports to them by and by, and they see either you bought something that you agreed on as a church, or you have put a building that you have agreed on as a church, and they see it. But where they don't see it, they have the right. They have the right to ask through the leadership of the church, their elders in the church. It is only bad that when a church member just go on the street and just begin shouting like that. But through the structures of the church, there should be a way of asking for accountability, which is very, very normal.
And is the church transparent enough to share this information?
Yes, the church must be transparent, and some churches are doing it very well. I only encourage that other churches who are not doing it should really embrace it, because that's the right way really to do ministry in a transparent way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So looking at this policy, the government is looking at harmonizing the church and the government, and from the look of things, there are some things that are not pleasing you in the policy. What would you have had, or what would you want to see in the policy that perhaps the government has not addressed in regards to the validation or regulation of the churches?
Well, since the Ministry of Gender is still, have not even come up with this totally yet, we are still waiting for the details of really this policy, the nitty-gritties of it, and then we should be able to make our case on this. But as for now, from onset, the issue of saying that you are going to get exemption letter so that you cannot be taxed, or especially your tithe and offering, really doesn't go well, So we are yet to get the details of this policy.
Okay.
And then we will have our case to present over that matter.
Okay. Okay, so then as we conclude this conversation, so to whom should the religious institutions be accountable to, if not the government?
The religious leaders are accountable to their people, but also to government. Yes, also to government. We don't refuse accountability to government and the government structures. We accept accountability to government, and we do account, because we are also taxpayers in our own way, as we also contribute to the funds of running the country. So the government, we are accountable to the government, but also to our people that who give that money in the churches.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would be your closing remarks to the viewer? Yeah,
as we go in for Easter, I know many people are in the gear for really, tomorrow is Palm Sunday, and then for Easter. My appeal is that both for the public and the private sectors, we really embrace patriotism, but also we fight corruption together, because it is this corruption really that is making government lose a lot of money. Maybe that's why now they are peeping into the church offerings and tithe. But I believe the money that URA collects and all those other donate grants from outside, and maybe the money that is borrowed, if it is not really stolen, that money could do a lot in this country. Will not be where we are. So I really appeal to you fellow Ugandans and all of us, let us embrace patriotism, and then we fight corruption together. Let's join hands and let's fight corruption together.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us. And you've been listening to the Archbishop of the General Overseer of the National Fellowship of Born Again Pentecostal Churches of Uganda. And that conversation takes us in for a short break. When we return, we'll hear from the World of Sport.